Hello and welcome to the Sunlight Media Podcast. I'm your host, Angelo Frisina, founder and CEO of Sunlight Media. Today our guest is Ray McKenzie, founder of Starting Point and Red Beach Advisors.
Ray McKenzie, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Good to talk to you today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Great to have you as a guest.
No, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. So I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes, likewise. So I know you've run a couple of businesses. We'll get to those in a moment. But first of all, I'd like, to learn a little bit more about your background and how you got started in business and how it all came together.
All right. Sounds good. So my name is Ray McKenzie. Gosh, I had a pretty long career and exciting career that started kind of in tech in the early 2000s. San Diego State, then moved to the Bay Area, received a job opportunity with an early Michael Milken company in the Bay Area. Started with them and then jumped over to another company that was named UltraDNS. And specialize in internet infrastructure and domain management in the DNS space. Then over the course of that, my career kind of skyrocketed for the most part. We were a highly successful early stage business. We got acquired by a public company out of Washington, D.C. Then spent my career in terms of what I was working on, went from just running service delivery teams to doing business operations to sales engineering, professional services, strategy, and a lot of different things across many different industries and verticals. Eventually, what we did was my wife and I sat down and we said, where do we want to live and kind of raise our kids? So it's my wife and I, and then we have 4 kids. Our oldest son is now 19, about to be 20. He goes to college in New York. Then we have a 12-year-old son, and we have a 10-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter, twins. And so we were like, hey, where do we want to raise our kids? We've been in the Bay Area for this long, San Francisco Bay Area. And, we decided on Los Angeles. A company hired me to do global strategy and service delivery for them. And so they relocated us out to Los Angeles. So now we live in Redondo Beach, California. And so from there, the company was doing extremely well when I joined. But one of the challenges was I was going to Los Angeles, to Eastern Europe, to Western Europe, and back to LA once a month. So the travel was pretty hectic, and it was pretty hectic. And so, I tell people this all the time. I like my kids. I like my family. And I think I'd like to say they like me too. And so, it was one of those challenges to where I wanted to find out a good work-life balance for the most part. How do I do that? And it was something I was struggling with. And so I flew back to Los Angeles from an international trip. And I took a day off and I actually went to lunch. And Los Angeles is a very different culture to a certain extent than traditionally what I've been exposed to in San Francisco, Washington, D.C., New York, Chicago, and some other areas. LA is definitely more laid back. It's a hodgepodge of businesses, companies, entrepreneurs, creators, things of that nature. And so went to lunch one day. I flew back from Europe, decided to take a day off work, went to lunch. It was a Tuesday at like 1:00 at the beach. And I started seeing all of these people that were just out and about on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. And I was like, how is that happening when, all I knew my entire career was, you're in the office from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. for the most part. So the entire culture of it being free flowing and being able to be out and about at the beach at 1 to 2 in the afternoon and kind of laughing and enjoying yourself, it was pretty foreign to me. So with that, I was having lunch by myself, and then I was sitting next to a few other people at the restaurant, and I just started asking them questions simply about like what they did for a living. And as I started talking to more and more people, what came out is running your own business or owning your own company or starting your own company. And so that allowed them to have the freedom that they wanted to do, to be able to do the things that they wanted to do in life. And so as I left that lunch, and taking in all that information, I left that lunch saying, hey, I want to start my own company, and I want to be able to control my work and life balance. And at this time, I was 35 years old. So I sat back and I said, I want to start my own business. Once I said that, a week later, 2 CEOs called me that I knew from previous relationships with companies and some of the work I had done. So what I did was I then, the CEOs called me, they're buddies of mine. We talked, they were like, hey, we need some help in our companies. They're growing, they're scaling. The skills to come in and help us with that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm working full time for this company right now, but I do have some hours that I can dedicate towards helping you. And so I decided to take on those 2 consulting clients. That's how I fell into consulting for companies. And so that's how my first company, Red Beach Advisors, was started. Okay. Got it. And Red Beach Advisors is over the course of building the company, you go through your ups and downs, but Red Beach Advisors is a technology management consulting firm that helps companies with strategy, operational efficiency, and digital transformation through technology.
Got it. Yeah, I was just having a look at the website, and you have a pretty impressive client list. I see there's AWS, Microsoft, HP. How did those clients come about? Are they someone, people that you'd previously worked with, or you just kind of reached out to them and sold them your services? How did you get on their list?
Typically, the clients that we've acquired within Red Beach Advisors has primarily been through our networks, our immediate networks and/or people we've partnered with to do work with or got introductions. So the consulting world is it's interesting. I never, I wasn't a consultant from Deloitte or another large consulting firm. I just kind of fell into it. So my primary network has always gotten me some of these opportunities.
I see. So let's backtrack a little bit before we get more involved in the Red Beach. How did you originally get interested in technology? Was it something that you kind of enjoyed as a kid growing up with computers and gadgets, or did it kind of just naturally fall into place somehow? How did that come about?
Gosh, I want to say I hadn't posted on Twitter about this recently too, but the first thing my dad did growing up was my dad bought a Commodore 64. And so that was kind of like my first computer. And I couldn't get off it. Right. I was just like, morning, noon, and night. It was just, I was just on it. If I wasn't in school, once I come home, I'm on the Commodore 64. And so, it was obviously one of those things to where you were playing a lot of games and programs and things like that. But that's really how I got interested in technology to start. And kind of when I went to college, I studied management information systems. I wasn't too interested in the computer science path. I was more interested in how do you use computers for business, or how to use technology for business path. Right. And so that opened me up into obviously another world of technology and learning programs and what people, different companies that are out there and all that great stuff. And then I had an internship in college with the IT department of San Diego Transit Authority at the time. And so that continued to help me kind of build my technological early career. And that's what kind of helped me kind of funnel it into focusing on technology.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, we have kind of similar paths. I got into, the Commodore 64 way back in the day. mainly for games, as you say. But thinking back how we actually loaded those games, I'm not sure how you did it, but we had the old data cassette type system, right? And you plug your cassette, you load your cassette into it, and you wait like 3 or 4 minutes for this game to load, and you're like, oh, cool, here we go. You start playing the game, and maybe a couple of minutes it crashes, and you're like, oh, crap, here we go again. Put the tape back in, load it up, Such an interesting process. If you look back at, the technology today, of course, everything is instant and so fast, but it's good, I think, to understand that technology and kind of come from that and see how technology's evolved over the years. You really begin to appreciate it a lot more, especially with the advance of the internet and networking and stuff like that. It's good. It's kind of like the old phones, right? I'm sure you remember some of the old rotary phones and they were the thing back in the day, and then it turned into the cordless phone, and then, the answering machine came along. I think it's great, if you kind of grew up in the 70s and 80s and seen how technology has really transitioned and advanced over the last 30, 40 years, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely come a long way. With the Commodore 64, I was utilizing floppy disks. And the most younger people have never even seen what a floppy disk is, or ever would know or would ever know what to do with it. The technology has definitely come a very long way. And luckily, I've been able to, be involved in some way, shape, or form for many years now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's get back on the Red Beach Advisors then. So let's say I'm a technology company and I come, I say, Ray, hey, my, company's doing okay, but, we're having a challenge scaling and finding new business. What can you do for us? So maybe you can kind of take us through a process of how you take on new clients and what you do for them exactly.
Definitely. So what we do is whenever we engage possibly or a prospective client, the first thing we do is, a discovery and assessment period with the client. We want to come in, we want to understand the business, we want to understand the people in the business, and we want to understand the products and services. Okay. So to be able to help a company, you really have to know a bit of their background, how they're constructed, who's doing what, who's performing what functions, and how those functions are executed inside of the business. So we do a discovery and assessment of the company, where things are at, and sit down and maybe do a course of interviews across the business. If it's the entire business, then we try to talk with the entire executive team. If it's a specific department within a business, then we'll talk to, ideally the executive sponsor, and then probably focus our efforts within that specific department to find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they are or are not meeting their performance metrics. Once we go through that process, we then learn more about the business and how it's developed. It's extremely important. And then we can come in and we can go back and we can say, okay, well, now that we understand what your challenge is, and we've reviewed kind of the infrastructure and the personnel and the process within the business, then we can go back and do a bit of research to see what your competitors are also doing in the space, if we're not already familiar with it. So we want to take a look at the competitors in the space to find out, okay, well, these other companies are doing these things and you're not. Or you are, but you're not doing it as efficient as these other companies. And so that is why, you may or may not be hitting some of these performance metrics or doing or hitting the goals that you want to hit within the business. And then it's a process of saying, hey, now we've taken a look at the business overall in terms of what you do, where you want to go, how you want to get there. Then we talk about, hey, what the current state of the business is or department is or product or service. And then we take a look and build what it should be within the business. So this is what you should put in place in terms of technology. This is what you should put in place in terms of process and procedure. This is what you should put in place in terms of measuring performance. Or these are the type of people you should have within the business to help you run this going forward.
I see. So when you're looking at actual competitors, what kind of data do you take into consideration? Do you look at what they're doing in terms of digital marketing? Do you look at their social profiles? Do you look at their, run diagnostics on their search engine traffic? Or do you just kind of look at what type of services they offer and how they're offering those services? What exactly do you look into when you're looking at a client's competitor?
Yeah, when we're looking at client competitors, it's all about evaluating the space customers they play in, which is not every company is serving the right demographic or target.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to find competitors that are in that exact space. And then we also want to figure out where do the executives want to go with the business, and then also compare them to those larger companies if that's what you want to move into. And so sometimes it's moving into going from a small company to being a large company. Sometimes it can be going from a small company with certain products and services to you still want to remain a small company, but you want to add a product or service. So then you kind of need to evaluate, hey, where do the executives within the business want to go? If you're a large enterprise, you can say, hey, we need Red Beach Advisors to come in, and we're thinking about adding this new product or service. We need to evaluate if this makes sense. Is it a hot market or not? Who the competitors are, and what the process is going to be to move in that space. And so as you do that and you find out that information from the executive team, then you can start to measure accordingly, and put together a matrix of performance and how do you compare against these companies in this space? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you could do a SWOT analysis, which is a more popular term, but you really go out and you really evaluate and do your research on the market.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can imagine it could be, potentially a big risk for certain companies to take on a new service or a new product, because if they don't know the market well enough and they don't plan well enough, it could be a risky loss. So I guess it's an important step for companies to take when they're looking at, expanding or taking on a new service, kind of analyzing the risks and the infrastructure and what's involved before, going all out and saying, okay, let's do this. Has there been situations for you where you've looked at a company and they've come to you and they've said, look, we're thinking of adding this product or this service, and you just come to them and say, look, I don't think it's worth you doing that because of such and such reasons? Can you give us an example as to when you would advise a company not to take on or to expand? What would be the criteria for you to say, look, I don't think this is a good idea?
The criteria would, there are several different points, and it all depends on the product or service or, the direction of the company. For us, we really want to take a look at, if you're going to add a new product or service to your company's, line or, your company's offering, a service catalog, what you really want to find out is, by doing this, what do you want to achieve? So is your plan to, compete table stakes meet table stakes with other competitors in the market? Is that your goal? Is your goal to go out and say, hey, we see this amount of revenue that we can get if we offer this product or service? Or is it something to where you're like, hey, this now opens us up to a different market, a different industry? Okay. So the first thing you have to do is you have to evaluate what performance goals you want to meet or what you want to achieve. Then by understanding that, then you can start to evaluate, is this the right product or service or value add to the business that will help us get there? Then once you know that, then you can start to evaluate if it makes sense from a cost perspective to do so.
Right.
And then if you have that, then you can say, okay, well, cost perspective makes sense. The product or service, okay, we've got the business case for that. These are the goals we want to hit. Now, by adding this, is this something, one, that our current install base may want? Or two, is this something that when we take it to market, it's something that's new, something that's has a high growth rate in terms of demand? You don't really want to add a product or service that has a small growth rate. That doesn't make too much sense. Like, if you want to hit new goals, you want something that's going to drive growth within the business. You know, if that it's similar to saying, hey, I want to, if you're an automotive company first, per se. So, hey, I've got a car, we've got a line of 5 cars already. We want to add a new car to our, service catalog or our product line. That's great. Okay, well, do you really want to add a car that maybe has, a regular sedan? It's not an electric vehicle. It's just another sedan. Is that really going to be the growth that you want inside of your company? Or do you go out and you say, hey, I want to add a new product, a new car. It needs to be an electric vehicle. It needs to be hybrid. It needs to have things that people are looking for in today's market. That will drive growth.
Right. So it seems like ultimately the client at the end of the day makes a decision whether they move forward with that new strategy or not. You're kind of just outlining the pros and cons and, where they need to be, what they need to do in order to, release that new product or service. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, not necessarily laying out the pros and cons, but we also lay out, what that strategy and go to market is going to be for that new product or service. So we come out and we evaluate it from beginning to end, in terms of, does this make sense? And there's a lot of components to it, but it all starts with understanding where the business wants to go, what they want to achieve.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, I mean, what advice would you give someone then who is considering a business startup? Let's say it's someone who has never run their own business, doesn't really know what they want to do, and they come to you and they say, hey, Ray, I'm thinking of doing such and such. What do you think? What advice can you share to those individuals?
So for those individuals that are starting businesses, the first thing I'd say, and because I just started my second company, find out if what you're looking at starting or the product you want to build or the service you want to provide, make sure people want it. First and foremost, don't think people want it, which is, if you only have your perspective, that's not always the best thing. And I give this analogy a lot, which is, I actually gave this analogy over the weekend. If somebody's in the house, if they're in the house and they cook and they make tacos, they're going to say, my tacos are absolutely the best. I love them. And I love them, and I want to open a taco shop or a taco restaurant. Okay, that's fantastic. However, if you don't go outside of your house and taste other people's tacos, or find out that there's 3 other taco shops on your street, you're not going to do so well.
Right.
So you always need that external perspective, which is ask people, and I suggest asking a lot of people if your idea is good, bad, or otherwise.
Right.
So if you have an idea as to creating a product or creating a service, find out if the demand is there.
Okay, so let's say they have, researched the demand and they say, yeah, there definitely is a demand. I'd like to get started. How do they get the wheels in motion? Where do they start? Do they just start slow and borrow money, or do they get investors on board? And what advice would you share for them to actually get started?
The approach I've always suggested to people is to build the business first, and then find possibly outside money if you need outside money.
Right.
Okay. So, there, or you can find a company, you can say, hey, I want to build this, or I want to start this company and it's going to provide this service or this product. You may be able to find through your research of doing your market research, finding somebody who will say, hey, I'll pay you to build this for me, or pay you to fix this for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you can kind of fund your business, fund getting it going through some early stage revenue. I always start with demand first, and then you go into actually formulating the business, obviously the legalese of it all in terms of incorporating and all that good stuff, having a website and your market messaging and things like that. But you really want to focus on building your business, building a company.
So building a company is in the actual product or service, refining that, making sure the idea and the service is great, and then putting a team together, finding a location.
It just depends. It really depends on the product or service. Really depends. Right. Like nowadays, obviously with the COVID and the pandemic, you can build a business without even having an office space.
Right.
And I'm a proponent of, keeping costs as low as possible, so you can reinvest money back into your business. But to start a company, I think it's quite easy in terms of having an official entity and things like that. There's tons of services out there that can help you do that. Now, building a successful business or building a successful company is a completely different challenge, which is you really have to plan and you have to find out what the product or service you have, what the value proposition is for that product or service, who you want to sell to, the people that you want to sell to, is it at the right price that makes them say, hey, this does have immediate value. Then from there, getting over the hump of actually building the product or service. And sometimes you may need outside funding to help you do that. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you can self-fund it and kind of get things to an area where you can actually take it to market and launch it without having to need any outside investors or giving up equity.
I guess that kind of depends on the competition level too. If you're in a relatively competitive market space, then outside investment would probably sound like a good idea. I mean, do you agree?
Yes, it depends. Outside investment, if it's something that's obviously interesting to people, I always would think you want the money to accelerate growth.
Right.
Okay. So whether that be, I need this money to be able to add an additional feature into the product, or I need to add, I need the financing or outside investment to actually hire more personnel. All of that can play a factor into this.
And
there's a lot of different variables.
Yeah, absolutely. There are. I was just going to ask, are there any online resources that you can recommend if people are looking for outside investors?
I mean, I think LinkedIn is a great tool.
Okay.
LinkedIn is a great tool in terms of evaluating networks, people who are investors into companies. Twitter is also a great place. Twitter is interesting. Twitter is actually a really good place to find potential investors.
How would you find an investor on Twitter?
Search profiles. Hashtags. Hashtag investors. Hashtag VC. All of those are good places to start in developing relationships with people.
I see.
If you don't already have a current network.
Right.
If you do have a network, you should talk to your network first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. But Yeah, I mean, that's a good tip. I wouldn't realize that Twitter is a good place to find investors, but I guess by using hashtags and other search terms, you can find all kinds of people there. So yeah, that's a great tip. I do know that there are websites, I think it's called Angel List and similar type sites that have a network of investors. Have you used any of those resources?
I have, I have used those.
Mhm.
But as me, I'm an investor myself, so
Right.
AngelList is a good site. You can also search Crunchbase, which is another site with a lot of information. You also have PitchBook, which is another site that can help.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different resources that are out there.
Absolutely. Awesome. That's good to know. Now, I'm on the Red Beach Advisors site, and I see that there is a client portal where you can sign in. Are there tools available on that client portal, or is that simply where you just manage where they manage their account?
So the client portal, this actually leads into my next company, which is the client portal for Red Beach Advisors is designed for just client and service management. Okay, so clients are able to log into the portal and they're able to communicate with my team of consultants or contractors, okay, for any type of request that they need. All right, so they're able to share securely, they're able to securely message us, securely send documents, securely have transmission back and forth instead of utilizing email. All right,
I see.
It helps us get out of that, and it also helps us kind of be able to have the right visibility within the company in terms of all communication that's happened within the business for our clients and customers, and then everything is tracked. And so this leads into that's actually my new product, which is StartingPoint, a new company. So StartingPoint is a service management, is a white labeled software as a service service management platform for small to medium sized companies. And how I designed this is I had a challenge within my firm to have a platform to where I can manage all of these things from a small business perspective. My firm isn't big, it's relatively small. And so these companies always have a challenge with utilizing tools that a lot of enterprise companies have. Enterprise companies have the $10,000 to $20,000 to $50,000 to spend on tools, along with having IT resources to put these tools in place, versus small companies and small service-based companies that typically don't have IT staff on hand. They don't have $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 to invest in, tools or platform, and they also need something that's easy to use. And so that's how I developed StartingPoint. So it was something that I needed for Red Beach Advisors. But as I started to share my concept with other clients of mine, along with vendors of mine in my internal network, once I did that, they were also like, we have the same challenge. And so that goes back to kind of the tidbit I gave, your listeners earlier, which is go out and do your market research. Ask if what you're building is something that people need. And then you have to find out if it's something that people need and will pay for at that right price. And so StartingPoint is now, a live platform. The company is alive. We've got customers. We've been growing the platform. It just kind of launched May 15th, so it's really new. And we've just taken it to market, and we've had some early success.
Great. That's amazing. Now, we spoke earlier about possibly doing a live demo of the StartingPoint portal. Is that still possible for you? Are we able to have a quick look at it?
Yes, we can. So what I'll actually do is I'll share the screen and show the YouTube video that we've created for this. Is that fine?
It'd be great if we could actually get onto the portal itself, and you can kind of guide us through some of the features and functions. Is that possible?
Oh, for sure. Okay. Let me share my screen now.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think I might need to make you a host. Hang on a minute. Let me see.
Yeah, you'll have to share that.
Okay. I just made you a host, so you should be able to share your screen.
All right, perfect. 1 second, really quick. Close that. Okay, let me share. All right, perfect. So now you should see my screen, correct?
Yes, indeed. There we go. Perfect.
All right, perfect. So Starting Point is a white label client-facing software as a service platform to manage client and service management for small to medium-sized companies. And so on this portal itself, you have a few different functions. Okay, so this site itself is fully customizable. So the logo can be your company logo. This tagline can be changed for your company. The color scheme can also change. You can also list any of your services that your company offers here. You can put logos for your clients and partners down here. And you also have a fully customizable footer and social media links for your company. Okay.
And that's
so
great.
all of this
So
can be
the end user has the ability to change all of this through their portal, or is that something that you guys do on your end?
No, our customers have the ability to manage this entirely themselves.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay. And so what would happen is if you have a new client or customer, kind of the first thing they would do is they go to the portal that would look like your brand. It would feel like your company, your logo and color scheme, and they create an email and password. Okay. And so that would allow them to have the access to it. The platform itself does also support two-factor authentication for additional security. So with that, we'll come back and we'll log in as an end customer. So say if there is, you have a new customer that has just signed up on the platform, they log in to your portal. Once they log in, this would look exactly like your company. So you would have your logo here, your color scheme, but they would be able to submit any cases or inquiries to you and your team here. Okay, so they'd create a company profile for themselves. They'd also be able to outline any goals of how they wanted to work with your company. They can also have a checklist of things that they want to track in working with your company. They have the ability to create a profile for themselves, and they have the ability also to upload different files to the platform to share with you and your team. Okay, so with this, it's really simple, and all of these fields are customizable too for your business. So we can put, please send financial statement. That's what we'll say.
Okay.
Need statement for January 2020. You can upload a file, hit create. For the end user, it's that simple. It's all they have to do for your company now. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll log out of here. And we'll log back in as a member of the company. Okay. So they're going to log into the same portal, but a different view. All right. So they'll log in. Now what you'll see is the same portal, but a different view. So you'll see all of the questions that have been submitted to multiple customers or in clients of your company. You can see what you've worked on in terms of assigned inquiries that you've taken ownership of. You can also see all of the customers that are registered inside of the platform. Okay, so you can search and find all of them. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the questions. We'll see this new case came in recently. We can take a look at it. Okay, need statement. What I'll do is I'll take ownership of the case. Take ownership of it. Now nobody else can reply to it. Only I can. So now I'll put a response. So testing. I can attach a document if I want to, and I can add the comment to the case.
And what document types does it accept? You know, Word, PDF, JPEG?
Word, PDF, Excel documents, almost any file that you would like, up to about 5 megs.
Got it. Okay.
And so the question text is here, and you now see the full thread of the ticket itself. So anybody in the company now can see this case and can see what happened in the past. One of the challenges with small businesses is that if I have a company of 3 to 4 people and you, Angelo, are emailing somebody one-to-one, I'm emailing somebody else one-to-one. If I leave the office or if you leave the office, I have no insight into what you're doing, what happened, the conversation.
Right.
And then losing that conversation leads to a lack of customer service.
Right.
Which then has a decrease in customer satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Which then can lead towards the customer picking another company to provide those services.
Right.
Okay.
So from what I'm understanding, it's kind of like a streamlined project management tool or a customer management tool.
It's more of a streamlined service management tool.
Right.
Because you're providing services in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So the starting point is not a CRM. The CRM typically manages, the front end, the sales funnel, the lead funnel, things of that nature. It's not a project management tool. It's because project management tools, you're typically managing a one project and you want to assign different tasks to that project and see where people are working on things like that. So it's not project management. It's a service management tool, which is we're now managing client engagement for all of the services that we offer.
Got it.
Okay. So that's kind of the unique proposition with the tool. Now, the other key is you've seen how it works. No function takes more than 3 to 4 different clicks.
Right.
It's really simple. And so it's designed to be simple as possible for people to use that. Now, here's the admin panel of the tool itself. Okay. So the owner of the business has the ability to come in here and manage their site, their individual instance. Okay. So you can see new clients registered, new questions resolved questions. We'll come in, we'll hit refresh. Refreshes. Now you see the new question that was submitted. Okay. Now within here, you can also create additional admin users, and these are users that have access to this portal specifically. You can create more roles. You can create rights. You also have the ability to see all of your customers in the platform itself, and you can export their customer information if you need to, maybe you want to send a newsletter or a blast out to people or anything like that. You can export that information. You also have the ability to see all of the files that are uploaded to the platform. You can also see all of your team members or staff. Okay. So your staff can be listed here and they can all have accounts and you can manage their staff that way. And you can also see how many tickets or questions they've responded to. Now, within here, you also have the ability from this view to see all of the questions that are inserted into the platform. So you now see all of the communication happening within the company. Okay. And then say if I come in here, I can actually see the thread and the full thread of information.
Right.
Now with the tool, you do have the ability to group team members together and or rules. So groups and rules allows workflow automation to occur. Okay. So if you want a specific type of ticket or type of inquiry to go to a specific group or person, you can create that group and you can create those rules to automatically assign those cases to the right people.
Wow, that's cool.
Okay. So in the advanced settings section, this is where you're able to customize the colors, you're able to customize the logo, you're able to customize the type of tickets and all of the customization there. You can also set all settings for anything on the front base of the page itself. So you'll see social media links and content. And you also, as a small business, have the ability to create a frequently asked questions section. So if you know that there are certain cases that come inbound that you get a lot of questions for, you can automatically create an article for that, and you can do that there. All right. And that is Starting Point.
Yeah.
So
Do you
it's
have
designed.
notifications? Are you able to set up notifications to alert certain users that there is a message? And
Yes, you are. And so that's the email template section of it, which
great,
are
great.
once a new ticket or case is created, the person who submits the case gets a notification, and anybody inside the company gets a notification to log into the portal to manage the communication.
Got it, got it. And this is all available just through the desktop browser interface. Are you planning to
Yes.
roll out a mobile app at some point? Or?
Well, it's mobile optimized, so
Yep.
you can you can use it through your phone, but it's all through a browser at this time.
Okay. Good to know. And you have various plan levels, I imagine, for the service?
Right now we're taking on early adopters for the platform. So our pricing right now is $50 per month per company.
Very
So
reasonable.
it's really, when we went back over the process of evaluating the product and value and if people would pay or not, we wanted to get users on the platform, early adopters on the platform. We want to get their feedback. We want to see how they can use the platform, what makes sense for them, and what drives value for them. Now, of course, over the next 3 to 4 months, we'll be possibly changing our pricing strategy. But right now, it's $50 per month per company.
Got it. Are there any new features and tools that you're considering to add in the future that you want to talk about a little bit?
We do have some features, and our product roadmap is confidential, so we can't necessarily share that.
Okay, understood.
But a lot of our product roadmap is defined by our customers. So we want to know what our customers want to have in the platform to run their business. So the idea is Starting Point becomes the starting point for all day-to-day activity and service management within your company.
Right. Yeah, it's a very, very cool tool. I can definitely see value in this for a lot of companies, and you have a very affordable monthly cost. So, yeah, if our listeners are interested, they should definitely check that out. It's StartingPoint.ai, I believe, is the correct domain.
Yes, that's correct.
And then also redbeachadvisors.com. If people are interested in that service as well, they should check out Ray's website. And I believe you're on some social media channels here as well. Just looking at your Red Beach page, looks like you're on, what do you got here? Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If they want to find more information on Red Beach Advisors and StartingPoint.ai, I see you're also, where are you here? LinkedIn, the same, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
Yes, that's correct. So for LinkedIn, you can obviously look me up at Ray McKenzie or Raymond McKenzie and find me there. And feel free to add me and send messages and communicate through LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter at Ray RAY MC. MC as far as first letters initials of my last name, and then 209. So Ray MC 209 on Twitter. And then you can also find all of the companies available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and so in Instagram as well. So StartingPoint.ai or Red Beach Advisors.
Awesome. That's great to know. I really appreciate your time here on the podcast today, Ray. It's been great. You've been able to share some excellent and valuable information to our listeners, and hopefully we can do it again sometime in the future once you've developed some new tools and features of Starting Point. We can jump back on a call and show people what you've been working on.
Okay, for sure. Thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast and share some insight in terms of my career, my background, Red Beach Advisors, and also Starting Point. I invite all of your listeners to reach out to me, and if they want to talk or have a conversation or ask some questions, feel free to contact me. I'm always available, and I'll always respond.
Absolutely. That's good to know. Well, thanks again, Ray. You have yourself a great week, and all the best. And we look forward to chatting with you again sometime in the near future.
All right, definitely. And thank you for having me. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You as well. Thanks again.